Tammy Slaton, a member of the band 1,000 Pound Sisters, has become more self-sufficient as a result of her weight loss. However, the fact that she has not yet learned how to drive poses a risk of preventing her from attaining her full potential. In addition to preventing the 38-year-old woman from being genuinely independent, it also posed a risk to her relationship with her brother, Chris Combs, who is 44 years old. Chris is ready for Tammy to rely on him less now that she is able to take care of herself, despite the fact that Tammy and Chris have always had a wonderful relationship. When she was at her heaviest, Tammy weighed 725 pounds, and prior to undergoing bariatric surgery, she required a great deal of assistance with how she went about her daily life. After shedding an astounding 500 pounds, the star of the sixth season of Sisters, who weighed 1,000 pounds, has emerged as a woman who is capable of standing on her own. Tammy's mobility has been restored, which has been a game changer for her. Nevertheless, the fact that she is unwilling to learn how to drive may prevent her from gaining real independence. The fact that Tammy is unable to drive poses a potential risk to both her efforts to lose weight and her relationship with Chris. Tammy's ability to drive has always been a problem for her. The Sisters actor, who weighed 1,000 pounds, had restricted movement before undergoing bariatric surgery. She was unable to walk or stand for more than a few seconds due to her condition, and she required assistance with every element of her day-to-day life. In order for her to leave the house, she needed a wheelchair, a ramp, an oxygen tank, and a specialized van. This was a significant challenge for her. In order to accommodate Tammy, who was unable to fit into a standard car seat, the middle seat of the van was removed so that she could sit on the floor. Because it was evident that she was unable to drive independently, she required the assistance of a driver at all times. It is still Chris who Tammy relies on. Tammy is now able to fit into a conventional vehicle seat without any difficulty and could use a regular seatbelt without the need for an extender because she has lost 500 pounds. In spite of the fact that the 1,000 Pound Sisters Season 6 star is now capable of driving herself with ease, she has decided not to learn how to drive, and as a result, she is dependent on her brother Chris to drive her everywhere. Despite the fact that Chris is willing to assist his family, he is required to work 6 days a week and must also consider his wife and his immediate family. In spite of the fact that he does not have the time to take Tammy anywhere, she continues to insist on not learning how to drive, which is beginning to get on his nerves. Over the course of her whole adult life, Tammy was characterized by the fact that she required assistance from everyone at all times. Although it is wonderful that the star of Sisters, who weighed 1,000 pounds, has lost weight and recovered her freedom, the growing pains are quite real. Taking care of herself is something that Tammy has never been required to do before, so she must learn how to do it. Over the course of her life, Tammy has undergone a number of significant transitions, such as moving out on her own for the first time. As a result, learning how to drive is yet another obstacle that she will need to conquer. The name, Ms. Slaton Tammy, happy birthday. The 27th of July, 1986, 37 years old. Origin of life, Kentucky, Kentucky. Relationship status, loss of a spouse. The heaviest weight, 7.20 kilograms. Weight at the moment, 230 kilograms. Complete and total weight loss, 400 kilograms. The followers of social media, 296,000 TikTok users and 43,000 Instagram users. Throughout the 1,000 Pound Sisters series, the personal lives and struggles of Tammy Slaton have captivated viewers. From her ongoing weight loss journey to her complex family dynamics, Tammy's life has been anything but ordinary. As fans have watched her navigate challenges and evolve over time, one ongoing issue that continues to impact her personal relationships is her refusal to learn to drive. This seemingly small decision has far-reaching consequences, especially when it comes to her relationship with her brother-in-law, Chris Combs. Chris, who has been supportive of Tammy's weight loss and personal growth, has often found himself caught between offering help and feeling frustrated by her reluctance to take control of certain aspects of her life. The issue of driving, in particular, has become a point of tension between the two, threatening to put a strain on their relationship. While the refusal to learn to drive may seem like a minor issue to some, in the context of Tammy's life and her interactions with those closest to her, it is a deeply symbolic and practical challenge that could ultimately undermine her relationship with Chris. In this article, we will explore the complexities of Tammy Slaton's refusal to learn to drive, the dynamics of her relationship with Chris, and how this ongoing issue could destroy their bond if not addressed. We will also consider the emotional, psychological, and practical reasons behind Tammy's hesitation to get behind the wheel and what might need to change for her to break free from this cycle. Ultimately, the question arises, can Tammy and Chris navigate this issue and maintain their relationship, or will her refusal to learn to drive prove to be the breaking point? The dynamics of Tammy and Chris's relationship. Tammy Slaton's relationship with her family members has always been a focal point of 1,000-pound sisters. Of all the relationships depicted on the show, one of the most significant and frequently discussed is the bond between Tammy and her brother-in-law, Chris Combs. Chris, who is married to Tammy's sister Amy, has been a steadfast figure in Tammy's life, providing support, advice, and a sense of stability during tumultuous times. From the very beginning of the series, Chris has demonstrated a deep concern for Tammy's well-being. He has often served as a mediator between Tammy and Amy, trying to keep the peace while also encouraging Tammy to take responsibility for her health and lifestyle. Chris's tough love approach, combined with his genuine care for Tammy, has made him a crucial figure in her weight loss journey. However, this relationship has not been without its challenges. While Chris's intentions are always rooted in a desire to help, Tammy's resistance to change has created a friction that at times seems insurmountable. One of the most significant areas of tension between the two is Tammy's refusal to learn how to drive, which has placed an additional burden on Chris. For many people, driving is a routine part of daily life, a skill learned early and integrated into adulthood. But for Tammy, driving represents much more than a simple act of transportation. It taps into her deeper fears, insecurities, and the limitations she feels in her life. This seemingly small issue has become a recurring point of frustration in her relationship with Chris, especially when it comes to practical matters that require her to be more independent. As Chris navigates his role in Tammy's life, balancing support with frustration, his patience has been tested. For someone who has undergone his own journey of weight loss and personal growth, Chris has tried to be a positive influence, often offering guidance and encouragement. But the ongoing issue of Tammy's refusal to drive has placed him in a difficult position. Tammy's refusal to learn to drive, psychological and emotional barriers. Tammy's refusal to learn to drive cannot be understood in purely practical terms. It's not just about the act of driving itself, but also about the deep-rooted emotional and psychological barriers that have shaped her reluctance. Over the course of 1,000-pound sisters, viewers have seen Tammy struggle with her weight, self-esteem, and mental health. These issues, compounded by years of trauma and emotional pain, have undoubtedly contributed to her hesitation to learn to drive. One key factor that may be influencing Tammy's decision is her fear of failure. Throughout her life, Tammy has faced many setbacks and struggles, particularly in her battle with obesity. With each attempt to make progress, whether it's losing weight, improving her health, or building her independence, she has encountered obstacles. This constant cycle of attempting and failing may have created a deep-seated fear of trying something new, like learning to drive, only to face more failure and disappointment. Additionally, Tammy's fear of change plays a significant role in her reluctance to drive. For many individuals who struggle with self-esteem and a lack of control over their lives, the prospect of gaining more independence can be overwhelming. Learning to drive would require Tammy to take responsibility for her own mobility, and for someone who has relied on others for so long, this step might feel daunting. The act of driving could represent a larger shift in Tammy's life, one that she may not feel emotionally or psychologically prepared for. Another contributing factor could be Tammy's sense of dependency. Throughout the series, she has often relied on her family members, particularly Amy and Chris, to help her with daily tasks. While this reliance is rooted in a need for support, it can also be seen as a way for Tammy to maintain a sense of safety and comfort in her life. The fear of losing that safety by becoming more independent through driving may be contributing to her refusal to learn. Finally, Tammy's struggles with body image and physical limitations also factor into her hesitancy. Learning to drive requires a certain level of physical stamina, coordination, and confidence, all of which may feel out of reach for Tammy. If she perceives herself as unable to perform the physical aspects of driving, this could further reinforce her belief that she is incapable of mastering the skill. The consequences for Tammy and Chris. While Tammy's refusal to learn to drive may seem like a minor issue at first glance, it has had significant consequences for her relationship with Chris. Chris, who has been one of the most consistent figures in Tammy's life, is often called upon to transport her to doctor's appointments, therapy sessions, and other important events. As someone who is trying to balance his own responsibilities with his desire to support Tammy, Chris finds himself in a difficult position. Over time, Chris has become increasingly frustrated with Tammy's refusal to take responsibility for her own independence. His efforts to encourage her to take the next step in her personal growth are met with resistance, and this dynamic has begun to strain their relationship. Chris, who has worked hard to overcome his own personal challenges, including his own weight loss journey, may feel as though Tammy's refusal to make progress is holding her back and, by extension, holding their relationship back. The impact on their relationship goes beyond just the practical inconvenience of driving. Chris's frustration stems from a deeper concern that Tammy is not fully invested in her own growth and well-being. His desire to see her succeed and become more independent is rooted in love and care, but it's also fueled by a genuine concern for her future. By refusing to take control of certain aspects of her life, Tammy is inadvertently placing the burden on Chris and others in her family, making it more difficult for them to support her in meaningful ways. Moreover, Tammy's dependence on Chris for transportation highlights the larger issue of her lack of self-sufficiency. If she continues to rely on Chris for every little task, it could create an unhealthy dynamic in their relationship. Chris may begin to feel as though he is carrying a heavy load, both emotionally and physically, as he tries to balance his own life with the demands of Tammy's ongoing struggles. The bigger picture, what Tammy's refusal to drive says about her life. Tammy's refusal to learn to drive is not an isolated issue, but rather a reflection of deeper struggles in her life. As viewers have seen, Tammy's weight, mental health, and emotional well-being have all been factors that have contributed to her feeling trapped in a cycle of dependence. The refusal to learn to drive symbolizes a larger issue of Tammy's resistance to change and her fear of taking control of her life. At its core, Tammy's refusal to drive is about control. By refusing to learn how to drive, she is subconsciously maintaining control over the way others interact with her. She may feel that by keeping others in the role of caregiver or enabler, she can avoid the vulnerability that comes with change and growth. In many ways, driving represents independence, and Tammy's refusal to embrace that independence may be a defense mechanism against the fear of failure and the unknown. However, it's important to recognize that this behavior is not unique to Tammy. Many individuals who struggle with significant life challenges, particularly those related to weight or mental health, often face similar barriers to change. The fear of independence, the pressure of expectations, and the emotional weight of past failures can all contribute to a person's hesitation to take the necessary steps towards self-sufficiency. Can Tammy and Chris repair their relationship? As Tammy and Chris continue to navigate their relationship, the question remains, can they overcome the tension caused by Tammy's refusal to learn to drive? While it may seem like a small issue, it's clear that the underlying dynamics are more complex. For Chris, it may require patience and understanding as he continues to encourage Tammy to take the next steps in her journey toward independence. At the same time, Tammy must confront her own fears and insecurities, acknowledging that learning to drive is not just about the act itself, but about taking control of her life. Therapy and support from her family will be crucial in helping Tammy work through her emotional and psychological barriers. She will need to find ways to build confidence and self-worth, which may involve confronting her fear of failure and learning to trust herself. Ultimately, whether or not Tammy and Chris's relationship can withstand this challenge depends on both of their willingness to communicate openly and work through the underlying issues. Tammy will need to take ownership of her own progress, while Chris must balance his support with the need for boundaries and self-care. Tammy Slaton's refusal to learn to drive may seem like a small issue on the surface, but it has far-reaching implications for her relationship with Chris Combs. As Tammy continues to struggle with her own personal growth, Chris's frustration with her reluctance to take responsibility for her own independence is growing. This tension has the potential to damage their bond, but with patience, understanding, and a commitment to working through their challenges, they may be able to find a way forward. The refusal to drive is a symptom of larger issues in Tammy's life, including her fear of failure, emotional barriers, and desire for control. However, with the right support and a willingness to embrace change, Tammy may eventually be able to break free from these constraints and move toward greater independence. Whether or not she chooses to learn to drive, the most important step is for Tammy to take ownership of her own life and make the changes necessary to build a healthier, more fulfilling future for herself and her relationships.